This week on The Review, a new series of Earthrise, we speak to one of its reporters. Xenophobic attacks in South Africa, what you've had to say about our coverage, and all the news you've been clicking and sharing. Hello and welcome to The Review, the show that goes behind the scenes here at Al Jazeera, but also lets you do the talking. This week, Earthrise was back on our screens. The brand new series of our environmental magazine returned just in time for Earth Day 2015. Episode 1 marked the 5th anniversary of the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, the largest marine oil spill in the history of the United States. It featured an intriguing account of the ways communities are using do-it-yourself technology to investigate environmental polluters. You've been posting questions about that story, which Earthrise's Juliana Schatz will be fielding later. But first, after a turbulent week, a look back at the news that had you clicking and sharing.
I'm in Jeppestown in downtown Johannesburg, and it's been the scene of the worst violence, certainly here today.
The suicide bomber detonated his vest in a crowd of people lining up outside Jalalabad's Kabul Bank. Government salaries are paid here, and the apparent target was civil servants.
The search and rescue effort is being supported with aircraft and helicopters. Coast Guard and Navy ships from both Malta and Italy have been joined by merchant vessels. Planes are crisscrossing the sea where the migrant boat capsized, scouring the waves for signs of life.
In more than 3 weeks of bombing, this was one of the largest attacks yet.
Allahu Akbar!
The target was a Scud missile base.
A Cairo court has sentenced deposed Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi to 20 years in prison. It's in connection to the deaths of demonstrators in 2012.
People began gathering at dawn on Wednesday. It's the second day of a 3-day national mourning period for ISIL's victims. A video was posted online on Sunday that appears to show the armed group shooting and beheading nearly 30 Ethiopian Christians in Libya.
And a state of emergency is declared in Chile as a volcano sends ash 20 kilometers into the sky.
To pick up on one of those stories, many of you have been tracking the news unfolding around xenophobic violence in South Africa. So we asked for your insights and thoughts on our coverage. Mark Wright via Facebook asked why the stories become such a focus now when South Africa has seen xenophobic violence before. Rich Steer emailed us this statement in response to Al Jazeera's coverage. Why is Al Jazeera reporting on this violence in such an understanding manner? I wonder how the channel would portray this if it were white Europeans killing immigrants because they took their jobs. On Google+, Lord Vic Oketch asked if this picture of a man being attacked and who later died of his injuries can be used to prosecute the perpetrators. Priyal Singh tweeted his appreciation of this Al Jazeera Interactive for providing insight and context into the xenophobic violence in South Africa. Finally, Nkosi Sibanda from Bulawayo, Zimbabwe sent us a message on Twitter requesting that Al Jazeera interview Jacob Zuma. Well, Nkosi, we asked our team at the Africa desk and they haven't yet bid for Zuma, but we've let them know there are viewers like yourself interested in seeing Al Jazeera interview him. 5 years ago this week, the Deepwater Horizon oil rig exploded in the Gulf of Mexico, releasing millions of gallons of crude oil and natural gas into the surrounding marine environment. The first of a new series of Earthrise focused on one local response to the disaster. Public Lab is a community of open-source science activists. They create and share low-cost, do-it-yourself technology to gather data about environmental problems. Earthrise's Juliana Schatz went to New Orleans to meet them.
It's been a difficult decade for the city, with large-scale environmental disasters such as Hurricane Katrina and the BP oil spill devastating people's lives and local ecosystems. But out of this onslaught, new groups have emerged to tackle environmental problems. One organization is called Public Lab.
Hey, how are you? Good. Public Lab is a community that works to create the space for people to share open source environmental tools, technologies, and resources.
We're going to be building some circuits that are related to water monitoring stuff.
Okay. Like, how do you identify oil? And we learned that you could use a spectrometer, and so we began building them. The most primitive example of a spectrometer you can imagine, you know. Today we think a lot about cell phone cameras in terms of justice. You know, are you allowed to film the cops to see if they're abiding by the law? So I think, you know, in a similar sense, in environmental space, I think that small, inexpensive sensors, you know, could be transformative in a similar way.
You've been sending in questions about that story, and Juliana has agreed to help answer them. Agapita wondered whether individual citizens were still providing financial support to Public Lab 5 years on from the spill.
They've always been a very small team of full-time staffers. They remain that way because Public Lab is a not-for-profit operation. They're not seeking to gain profit from what they're doing. But in theme with this open source concept, lists all of their donors on their website.
And Renata Gomez asked how realistic it is that Public Lab's findings actually hold BP accountable for the oil spill, given that their aim is to bring polluters to justice.
So this is a David and Goliath situation. BP is a very big multinational company, and Public Labs is a handful of people. However, Public Labs, their DIY tools are being used by partner groups like the Gulf Restoration Network to take aerial photography, to also use to gather samples. Scott Eustace used his kite or his near-Earth satellite to take images of a polluting coal company. And now that really is a success story because that is in legal proceedings as a result of the photos he took. So I think it's still yet to be determined whether or not BP has truly been held to justice as a result of Public Labs, but it's in the process.
Before signing off, we wanted to recognize two Al Jazeera online projects, our digital magazine and the interactive Palestine Remix project. They've both been nominated for Webby Awards. Congratulations and best of luck. That'll do it for us now. Thank you so much for submitting your thoughts and comments on our coverage. Please do keep them coming, and maybe next week you could be on the review.